It is time for a Patreon requested theological analysis for Inception. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for Inception. And this is a Patreon request from Cody Lamoreau, who gave at the level on Patreon where he gets to pick a theological analysis for me to do, and he picked for me to do Inception. What's interesting for me about doing Inception is a year and a half ago, Rapthorn and I did what we called back then a reading way too much into Inception. And what I think is so interesting about movies, though, is they are so subjective. Like, I think different people are going to watch movies through different lenses and get different messages out of it. But am I the same as I was a year and a half ago, the first time I did this? So am I going to look at this movie through the same lens and get the same message? Let's dig in deep and let's find out 1 year and a half later what I find in Inception. As I was watching this movie this time around, here's what's really interesting about this movie. Inception is not just about questioning your reality, it's about the power of an idea.
A single idea from the human mind can build cities. An idea can transform the world and rewrite all the rules.
They even said it in the movie how an idea can define you or destroy you. And often ideas are really just the tiniest of seeds, maybe something super small like a mustard seed. But it grows and it grows into something big, either for good or for bad. Cobb and his wife Mal. And basically what they do is they're exploring levels of dreams, levels of conscious and subconscious. And as through this dream sharing technology, they're sharing dreams and they're digging deeper and deeper into the subconscious and exploring that, they come down to the deepest level of dreaming, the scary, formless void of the complete eternal subconscious. And once they get down there, time ceases to be a factor. Everything's different. The rules are different. So Mal and Cobb decide here's what they're going to do. They're going to build a world together. They design a city. They design a home. They design a life together. Because when Cobb asked her to marry him, he said, let's grow old together. So they built this entire world together that they could grow old in. You know what's interesting about this world, though? Christopher Nolan used very curious imagery. It's at a beach, sand everywhere. Their city, they sculpted out of sand. They made sand castles, and you can watch as they're knocking down a building in the little sand castle to rebuild a different one. You see the giant building in the background crumble and a new one coming up. It's very interesting imagery because Jesus said this: if you build your house on the rock, the rain will come and the storm will come, but the house will stand. If you build your house on the sand, the rain will come and the storm will come and the house will fall. The imagery used here is sand. Their entire city, it's so, when you watch it, like I get this grainy, sandy feeling even as I'm watching when they're deep in those subconscious levels and layers. It's all built on sand. So when the storm and the rain comes, that kingdom is gonna fall. And it's interesting because as time progresses, as slow as it progresses for them, Cobb begins to get restless. He gets restless with the idea this isn't real. He gets restless with the idea of there is something real. And there's something better than just sitting here in the sand and playing with these castles. He's got real children in a real world that truly need him. And this begins to make him restless for what's real. But on the other hand, you have Mal, who was not restless for what was real. In fact, she began to love what wasn't real. I mean, things like she could live in her dream house while also living in a building in the city that is the exact type of architecture she loves. To me, that's a representation of it's easy. It's easy for her at this point to get everything she's ever wanted and ever dreamed and all of that stuff. And that is what began to consume her. In fact, when she built her old childhood house out of sand here, she goes into the house, she goes into a safe. In other words, this is a picture of her going into her deepest self, into her deepest subconscious, and she hides her little totem in a safe, the top that spins. And she hides it in there, and this is a picture of her taking a truth, something that she knows is truth, something that she knows is real, and something she once believed, and locking it away deep in the recesses of herself. There was only one way Cobb was going to get back to reality. So he incepted her. He incepted into her the idea, the doubt that this world isn't real and that the way out is death. So when they let themselves get hit by a train, creepy scene, and they wake up in reality, this little idea that he started in her dream and her subconscious just to get her to come back to reality, it started as a little mustard seed. And that little mustard seed of an idea grew. And this was not the idea that would define her. It's the idea that would destroy her. To that point, she couldn't accept the world she was living in with her children. She couldn't accept the world she was living in with her husband. She couldn't accept it because of this seed of doubt that was planted in the deepest recesses of her heart. And you know what? It wasn't there just because Cobb incepted it. It was there because she knew truth and she made a conscious choice to lock truth away deep in the recesses of her heart, deep away to where she would have nothing to do with it. So this whole world that she had built up around her, as it began to collapse, as doubt began to fill her mind, she ended her life, leaving her children, leaving her husband, and in reality, they were left in a lurch because of all this doubt that she had filled herself with. So she had filed all of this stuff so that when she killed herself, it would look like Cobb did it, that Cobb was a bad man, that he was abusive, that it had brought her to this brink of death, so that he would have to leave, so he'd have no ties back to reality. So now we have Cobb. And Cobb is driven now by his guilt that he incepted his wife with this idea. And as he's doing all these different jobs, trying to go into CEOs' minds and other people's minds and steal their secrets for a price, even as he's going about and doing this, he's trying to find a way home. But all the while, you can just tell he doesn't feel he deserves to go home to his kids, because what kind of father is he? This guilt is eating Cobb up alive. Finally, Cobb meets a man played by Ken Watanabe, and this guy has the power to erase the guilt, the charges that would get him arrested and keep him away from his kids forever. I mean, this man has the ability to make his record clean. And so Cobb looks at him and he says, "How can I trust you?" He's like, "Well, you can't, but the truth is, I can. I have the power to do this. So you ready for a leap of faith?" So just think about that for a minute. And I think that's a true lesson, is sometimes we want to build our house on the sand because it just looks better. It looks easier. It looks like it's the best way to go. But when the rain and the storm comes, it's just not going to hold up. Sometimes we try to hide behind other realities, but in the end, when the rain and when the storm comes, it's not going to hold up. Where we need to have our lives built is on the reality of the rock. We need our house built on the rock so that when the rain and the storms come, it can hold up. But sometimes it's guilt. Guilt gets in the way. Guilt stops us from moving forward. Guilt makes us believe that we probably deserve our house built on the sand, that we deserve it to fall apart. And sometimes we inflict that punishment on ourselves and go in those directions, almost seeming like it's not even our choice. It's just something deep inside driving us in those bad directions. And it's because sometimes guilt can get so deep in there. A bad idea can get so deep in there that it causes us to go in those directions. Here's the interesting thing about Jesus. C.S. Lewis painted this one really beautiful picture. He said, imagine for a moment that you yourself are a living cabin, but a worn down, dilapidated cabin. So when you open the door and you let Jesus in a sense, that's complete trust to open up and let somebody come inside. So he comes inside and he's going to fix the things that you know need fixing. I mean, he's going to fix the plumbing. He's going to fix the holes in the roof. Those things you knew need fixing, of course he's going to take care of it. But then all of a sudden he starts knocking down walls and you're like, what is going on? Suddenly he's digging deeper foundation. It's like, wait a minute, I wasn't asking for this. But then you find out he's not just repairing this cabin. He's building you into a palace because he intends to live there himself. No matter what things are absolutely rooted deep into us, no matter what bad ideas that seem to drive our behavior or seem to drive our choices or to keep us building our house on the sand, the moment we take that leap of faith and we let Jesus come into those deepest corners of who we are and trust him completely, he's not just going to fix the house. He's going to rebuild something more magnificent than we could have imagined. If you saw Inception, what are your thoughts on this movie? Make sure to let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to the subscribe button is that bell. Click that bell so you're notified the moment I drop new videos like that. Hey, if you want to have a say in a theological analysis, check out my Patreon page. And right there you can see the different levels of giving. You know what? Any level of giving is much appreciated by me, and I greatly appreciate that. This was for Cody Lamoreau, who gave it the level to get to pick a theological analysis. So Cody, thank you so much for giving to Durbania. I greatly appreciate it. The guy's also got a great YouTube channel. You ought to check out his channel as well. So thank you so much, Cody. Thank you for the opportunity to go back and revisit Inception and do a theological analysis on that one. So thank you so much. You can check out that Patreon page. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbanian.